Hey guys, tonight we are stepping into the beautifully coordinated world of the 1960s housewife, where the curtains match the cushions, the casserole arrives precisely on time, and absolutely nobody is supposed to notice that you have hidden 3 unpaid bills, a packet of cigarettes, half a chocolate cake, and one increasingly complicated opinion about your marriage behind the flour canister. We are not talking about every wife, every husband, or every household. The 1960s were divided by region, race, religion, income, age, and the deeply personal question of whether your washing machine had chosen that morning to begin walking sideways across the kitchen. But for many married women, especially those surrounded by the polished middle-class ideal sold through television and magazines, domestic life required an extraordinary amount of concealment. You concealed the mess before your husband came home. You concealed the price of the new dress. You concealed the fact that the homemade pie had arrived in a cardboard box. You concealed your exhaustion because the new electric appliances were supposed to have eliminated it. And if you found yourself staring into the refrigerator at 2 in the afternoon, quietly eating cheese over the sink while wondering whether this was really the life promised by the advertisements, you concealed that too. The cheese had seen enough. Before we settle in, if you enjoy quietly wandering through the stranger corners of ordinary history, you can like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. No domestic tribunal will be convened. And leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there. There is something comforting about knowing that while one person is falling asleep in Birmingham, another is folding laundry in Brisbane, and somebody in Ohio has simply given up negotiating with a fitted sheet. The Quiet Hours is also on Spotify, so if you prefer to listen there while drifting off, you will find the link in the description. Now, dim the lights, put on a fan, pull your blanket up, and get completely comfortable. Let your shoulders drop. Allow the day to become somebody else's administrative problem. And before we begin, consider a few questions. Did 1960s housewives really hide money from their husbands? How much grocery change could disappear before anyone noticed? Could you disguise a frozen pie as homemade by placing it in your own dish and looking confident? What happened when the miracle appliance broke, the children misbehaved, dinner burned, and your husband was already turning into the driveway? Did women secretly smoke in laundry rooms? Did doctors prescribe tranquilizers for problems that were suspiciously similar to having too much work and too little freedom? Could you obtain birth control without creating a discussion involving your husband, your doctor, your priest, and possibly the state legislature? And what exactly were you supposed to do after reading a book suggesting that your perfectly arranged life might not be making you happy? Congratulations! You have just awakened in suburban America in the middle of the 1960s. The alarm clock is buzzing. Your husband expects coffee. Your children require locating. The kitchen is full of labor-saving devices, which have thoughtfully saved you enough time to perform even more labor. You have several secrets to manage before breakfast. Your day begins before the house is properly awake, in the pale blue light leaking around the bedroom curtains. You silence the alarm, slide carefully from beneath the blankets, and begin the small daily transformation from tired human being into reassuring wife. Whatever kept you awake during the night, the mortgage payment, a child's cough, an argument left unfinished, or the strange conviction that you have misplaced yourself somewhere between the laundry room and the supermarket, is not expected at the breakfast table. In many middle-class households, a wife's composure was treated as part of the home's operating equipment. The coffee percolates, the radio murmurs, and you arrange your face into something calm before anyone has asked whether you are. The respectable morning described in women's magazines rarely begins with worry. It begins with a clean robe, brushed hair, and a woman greeting the day as though she welcomed its arrival. Real mornings are less cooperative. The baby may have woken twice. A child may have coughed through the bedroom wall. Your husband may have slept beside you while you performed arithmetic involving groceries, insurance, school shoes, and the noise coming from the furnace. His sleep is preparation for work. Your wakefulness is treated as an unfortunate hobby. By the 1960s, the ideal of the cheerful homemaker has been polished through advertisements, advice columns, television families, and household manuals until it shines like a kitchen counter nobody has used. You are encouraged to create an atmosphere of reassurance. A pleasant home, the theory goes, begins with a pleasant woman. If you are anxious, disappointed, angry, or exhausted, Those feelings threaten to spread across the breakfast table like spilled milk, so you contain them. Emotional tidiness becomes housework, performed before anyone notices the room was messy. This does not mean every husband is indifferent, or every wife silently miserable. Many marriages are affectionate, many couples share their worries, and many households bear little resemblance to the suburban ideal. Race, class, region, religion, employment, and family structure alter the morning completely. Plenty of married women are preparing for paid work as well as domestic work. But the cultural picture remains clear. The husband goes out to meet the difficult world, while the wife makes home feel as though difficulty has been refused admission. You become skilled at small concealments. Cold water reduces the swelling beneath your eyes. Powder softens the evidence of a sleepless night. A dab of lipstick suggests morale. You tie your robe before leaving the bedroom because even fatigue is expected to observe standards. In the kitchen, the percolator gives its metallic cough, the refrigerator hums, and the clock advances with bureaucratic confidence. You begin locating shoes, lunch boxes, permission slips, clean shirts, and the child who insists he was dressed a moment ago. Nobody calls this management. It is simply what happens in the morning, apparently by itself. If breakfast arrives, the children leave with the correct belongings, and your husband finds his keys where he did not leave them, the household is considered naturally functional. If anything fails, your involvement becomes suddenly visible. Domestic competence is most admired when it resembles magic, and magic is famously difficult to invoice. At last, your husband reaches the door. You hand him whatever he has forgotten, receive a quick kiss, and tell him everything is fine. The statement may mean the mortgage still worries you, the child still has a fever, and the argument still waits in the bedroom, but none of it needs to follow him down the driveway. The door closes. The smile relaxes. For a moment the house sees your real face. Then the toast begins to burn, and morning requires you again. Once your expression is ready, the kitchen begins its morning performance. It smells of coffee, toast, and the faintly metallic warmth of an electric frying pan. Your husband sees breakfast appearing with comforting regularity, but he may not see the collection of shortcuts making it possible. Instant coffee, boxed cereal, refrigerated dough, canned fruit, powdered mixes, and frozen foods have entered the modern kitchen wearing the respectable uniform of progress. Advertisers promise that convenience will release you from drudgery, while domestic expectations still require the finished meal to look personal, generous, and faintly miraculous. You transfer everything into serving dishes, remove the packaging before witnesses arrive, and accept praise with the serene expression of a woman who has apparently been milling flour since dawn. Convenience food is not new, but the post-war kitchen gives it a kingdom. Supermarket shelves glow with products that save minutes, reduce preparation, and streamline breakfast. Frozen orange juice concentrate waits in the freezer. Coffee can be made without grinding beans. Biscuits emerge from refrigerated tubes with a report loud enough to wake anyone who escaped the alarm clock. Cereal arrives toasted, sweetened, shaped, and endorsed by characters who appear well rested. The advertising presents these foods as liberation, but it does not generally suggest that breakfast may now become optional. Instead, the saved time is reassigned. You can prepare more variety, serve more neatly, clean the kitchen sooner, and add sliced fruit so the cereal looks as though it has received individual attention. The appliance and the package do not lower the standard. They raise the number of standards you can be expected to meet before 8 in the morning. You learn which shortcuts may remain visible. A cereal box on the table is respectable, especially when children are present. A can of fruit is less elegant, so its contents appear in a glass dish without discussing their journey. Frozen juice belongs in a pitcher. Refrigerated biscuits require a basket and a folded napkin, because nothing says spontaneous domestic warmth quite like concealing the cardboard tube responsible for it. There is also the question of taste. Instant coffee improves during the decade, although improvement is generous when the comparison begins close to despair. You measure the granules, add boiling water, and listen while your husband discusses the coffee at work as though the cup before him has appeared beside his newspaper. If he prefers percolated coffee, the machine must be assembled, watched, emptied, and cleaned. Labor-saving equipment has a charming habit of creating several objects that require washing. The children provide a different audience. They recognize brands, request advertised cereals, and may reject canned peaches with the certainty of people who have never paid for peaches. You negotiate portions, wipe spills, retrieve spoons, and explain that the prize inside the box does not constitute breakfast. Meanwhile, toast darkens, eggs firm, and the electric skillet occupies more counter space than the task seems to justify. For many women, these products genuinely make mornings easier. They reduce preparation, offer consistency, and help households in which wives leave for paid work. Their usefulness is real. So is the pressure to make convenience invisible whenever it might suggest insufficient effort. The modern housewife is encouraged to save time, provided nobody can tell she has saved it. Eventually, the plates are cleared, and your husband leaves believing breakfast was simple. In one sense, it was. The factory mixed, sliced, froze, dried, canned, and packaged nearly everything. You merely selected it, budgeted for it, stored it, prepared it, served it, disguised it, persuaded the children to eat it, and cleaned up afterward. Progress has saved you several minutes. It has already made plans for them. After breakfast comes the more delicate question of baking. By mid-morning, a cake is cooling on the counter, or at least something shaped like a cake is sitting there while you consider its legal status. Cake mixes are widely available, but convenience still carries an awkward little shadow. Advertisements encourage women to add eggs, decorate creatively, and transform a standardized mixture into something that appears personal. A capable housewife may use modern products, but she is not supposed to look dependent on them. You apply frosting, arrange the decoration, place the cake on your own plate, and bury the empty package beneath several layers of kitchen trash. It is homemade in the sense that it is now inside your home. Packaged cake mixes had existed before the 1960s, but the post-war supermarket makes them ordinary household equipment. Brands such as Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines, and Pillsbury offer dependable results with less measuring, fewer ingredients, and a reduced chance of producing something suitable only for holding a door open. The instructions are simple. Add the required ingredients, beat the mixture, pour it into a pan, and allow modern food science to protect your reputation. The difficulty is not the cake. The difficulty is what the cake is supposed to communicate. Baking has long carried meanings that exceed hunger. A cake may announce affection, competence, hospitality, celebration, or the fact that you remembered the church gathering before somebody telephoned to remind you. If the result comes entirely from a package, some of that meaning appears to have been manufactured alongside the flour. The product saves labour, but it must not seem to have replaced care. Manufacturers understand this tension. Their advertisements and recipe booklets encourage you to personalize the finished cake with frostings, fillings, fruit, nuts, coconut, colored sugar, or decorative arrangements requiring more patience than the original batter. The mix becomes a foundation upon which domestic individuality can be rebuilt. You are not merely opening a box. You are expressing yourself through strategically positioned maraschino cherries. Presentation matters. The cardboard package stays in the cupboard while guests are present. The cake goes onto a glass stand or a proper plate. Frosting covers the unnervingly even surface, and crumbs are scattered just enough to suggest human involvement. If someone asks for the recipe, you may describe the decoration at length and allow the cake to remain a matter of national security. Not every woman hides the box, of course. Plenty use mixes openly and gratefully, particularly when paid employment, children, volunteer obligations, and housework have all made claims on the same afternoon. Convenience products are popular because they are genuinely convenient. They produce consistent results in ovens that do not always heat evenly and kitchens where time is scarce. The embarrassment belongs less to the product than to a culture that expects you to use every modern advantage while continuing to display the effort that advantage was designed to remove. Your husband may never ask whether the cake began in a package. He may be pleased that cake exists, but the domestic ideal has trained you to anticipate judgment even when no judge has entered the room. You smooth the frosting, wipe the rim of the plate, and remove a fragment of packaging that has appeared beneath the cupboard like an informant. By afternoon, the cake sits beneath its cover looking respectable, personal, and faintly proud of itself. The bowl is washed, the beaters have been sampled for quality control, the box is gone. When the first slice is served, everyone praises your baking, and you smile because correcting them would only make the occasion less pleasant. The cake is light, tender, and innocent. The evidence has been disposed of. The cake may be safely disguised, but the rest of the house is still prepared to testify. By late afternoon, it begins its daily emergency conversion from inhabited building to domestic showroom. Toys disappear into closets, newspapers are folded, ashtrays are emptied, cushions are struck into obedience. Advice columns frequently encouraged wives to straighten the house, prepare the children, and freshen their appearance before their husbands returned. The home was supposed to offer calm at the end of his working day, even if producing that calm required several other people to move with the urgency of an evacuation drill. You hear the car outside and slide the final laundry basket behind a closed door. The house is not clean exactly. It has agreed not to testify. The homecoming ritual grows from a post-war ideal, in which the husband enters from the public world and the wife receives him inside the private one. His day has contained traffic, deadlines, supervisors, and men who mistake volume for authority. Your task is to make the doorway feel like a border crossing into peace. Whatever occurred inside the house must be reduced to a pleasant temperature before he arrives. This is less simple than the illustrations suggest. The living room has spent the day collecting evidence of ordinary life. A child has built a fort from sofa cushions. Crayons have migrated beneath the coffee table. The newspaper lies in several sections because nobody in history has refolded one correctly. There are fingerprints on the television screen, a cup behind the armchair, and something sticky on the floor that has declined to identify itself. You work by priority. Anything visible from the front door is handled first. The vacuum passes across the carpet, leaving tracks that communicate order even if the dust beneath the sofa has established residency. Furniture polish adds a lemony scent. Curtains are adjusted, magazines are squared, and the television is turned off early enough for its glowing screen to cool. A silent television suggests industry. A warm one has been talking. Then the children must be arranged. Faces are wiped, hair is smoothed, and disputes are suspended under agreement. You remind them not to meet their father at the door with complaints, requests for money, or reports concerning broken objects. They may greet him warmly, but not so warmly that they knock him into the coat rack. Domestic affection requires traffic control. Finally, there is you. Some advice columns recommend changing from work clothes, touching up makeup, and greeting a husband pleasantly. The suggestion assumes you have completed the housework with energy left to become decorative. You wash your hands, repair your lipstick, smooth your skirt, and look into the mirror with the concentration of someone restoring a painting before the gallery opens. Not every family performs this ritual, and not every husband expects it. Many wives are returning from paid employment. Many husbands help at home, arrive at different hours, or enter kitchens where nobody has had time to disguise anything. Yet the ideal remains powerful because it defines a successful home by how little effort the returning man can see. The work is not merely to create comfort, it is to remove the visible cost of creating it. The car door closes outside. Instantly, the house enters its final position. The children stop arguing with the unnatural silence of people who have been warned. You check the room once more, open the door, and offer the calm smile prepared that morning. Behind you, a closet contains toys, newspapers, laundry, and one cushion that would not cooperate. Your husband steps into a peaceful home. The peaceful home leans firmly against the closet door. Behind one of those closed doors, the washing machine begins making a sound like a small aircraft attempting to leave the utility room. This is particularly unhelpful because the modern appliance has been sold not merely as a machine, but as proof that your domestic life is now effortless. When it breaks, you face a repair bill, accumulating laundry, and the faint suspicion that you have somehow operated progress incorrectly. You may telephone a repair service while your husband is at work, hoping the crisis can be resolved before evening and before the household budget must acknowledge it. Meanwhile, you stand beside a basket of wet sheets with the instruction booklet open to a diagram clearly intended for someone with an engineering degree and 6 additional hands. By the 1960s, automatic washing machines have become fixtures in many middle-class American homes, though ownership still varies by income, region, and housing. Some families continue using older wringer washers, shared laundry rooms, or neighborhood laundromats. The automatic machine is an object of pride. It fills, agitates, drains, and spins with no assistance. Apart from sorting, treating stains, measuring detergent, loading, unloading, drying, folding, ironing, and putting everything away. Advertisements show women pressing a dial and returning to lives of leisure. They rarely show the machine stopping with grey water inside it. They do not show a sheet twisted around the agitator like a sailor clinging to a mast. There is little discussion of the sock that has entered some hidden region and now appears to be negotiating directly with the motor. You begin with the approved remedies. The machine is switched off and on. The lid is raised, lowered, and raised again with authority. You redistribute the sheets because the instruction booklet warns of an unbalanced load, a phrase that seems unnecessarily personal. The machine answers with a metallic complaint. You answer by staring at it. Technical discussions have reached an impasse. Calling the repairman introduces a new set of calculations. Service calls cost money, replacement parts cost more, and household budgets are often tight enough that an unexpected motor or pump can disturb the entire month. If your husband manages the finances, you may prefer to know the damage before presenting it. There is a difference between saying the washer is making a noise and saying the washer was making a noise, but a capable professional has already corrected it for a modest fee. The repairman arrives carrying a metal toolbox and the calm expression of someone who has met this machine's relatives. You lead him into the utility room, explain the symptoms, and attempt not to sound responsible. He removes a panel, examines belts and hoses, and produces several technical words that all seem to mean expensive. You nod thoughtfully. A housewife is expected to understand her appliances intimately, but not so intimately that she becomes suspiciously mechanical. If the repair cannot be completed immediately, the laundry must go elsewhere. You bundle damp sheets into a basket and drive to a laundromat, where rows of machines turn beneath hard fluorescent light. Coins vanish rapidly, metal carts squeak, warm air smells of detergent, wet cotton, and somebody else's fabric softener. The modern home has failed, so you have brought its contents to a room full of witnesses. Eventually, a new belt, cleared hose, or replaced pump restores order. The machine resumes its steady turning, innocent of the financial and emotional disturbance it has caused. You wipe the floor, fold the instruction booklet, and calculate which grocery purchase will quietly become smaller this week. By evening, the washer is humming again behind the closed door. Your husband hears nothing unusual. Nothing unusual is the most expensive sound in the house. Repair bills lead naturally to money, the subject expected to remain invisible until there is not enough of it. Once a week, you stand beneath the fluorescent lights of the supermarket, with a list, a handbag, and a household allowance expected to cover an expanding universe of needs. In many marriages, husbands earn the principal wage while wives manage much of the daily spending. This produced a curious arrangement in which you handled money constantly without necessarily possessing much that required no explanation. A few cents saved on meat, soap, or canned peaches could quietly be placed aside. The amount might be tiny, but it belonged to you. Somewhere between the frozen vegetables and the washing powder, financial independence begins with 17 cents. The supermarket presents itself as abundance. Long aisles hold canned soups, frozen vegetables, detergents, cereals, and enough gelatin to suggest the nation has confused dessert with engineering. Yet every package competes for a fixed sum. You move through the aisles with a pencil, a list, and the concentration of a quartermaster who must remember the toothpaste. Household budgeting is called thrift, which understates the mathematics. You know which butcher reduces meat late in the day, which brand is cheaper without tasting like regret, and how many meals can be drawn from one chicken if everybody agrees not to ask difficult questions. You compare cans and calculate whether the larger package is economical or merely larger. Coupons clipped from newspapers travel in an envelope thick with offers for things nobody wants. Trading stamps add another layer. Many supermarkets issue stamps based on the amount spent, and you paste them into booklets for later redemption against household goods. The stamps reward spending by giving you several months of adhesive labour and eventually a toaster. Commerce has found a way to make shopping continue after you return home. The allowance may be handed over weekly, withdrawn from a joint account, or managed through other arrangements. Whatever the method, you are expected to make the amount work. If prices rise, children grow, guests arrive, or the washing machine requires a new belt, the household does not automatically produce more money. It produces a woman expected to substitute. You become fluent in substitution. A roast becomes ground beef, fresh beans become canned beans. A branded product becomes the store version, provided the original container can be retained long enough to prevent a family inquiry. Expensive fruit waits for another week. Dessert becomes simpler. Nothing is announced as deprivation. It is described as a change of menu. because domestic economy is more pleasant when served with parsley. The skill involved is considerable and rarely counted as financial expertise. You forecast consumption, track prices, manage inventory, prevent waste, and adjust spending across several competing needs. In another setting, these abilities might be called purchasing, logistics, or budget control. At home, they are called getting the groceries, which sounds as though you merely went outside and found them. If the total at the register comes in below your estimate, the difference creates a question. It can return to the household purse, disappear into next week's needs, or remain in a separate corner of your handbag. Keeping a few cents is not always deception. Sometimes it is insurance against milk running out on Thursday. Sometimes it is bus fare, a cup of coffee, or the rare pleasure of buying something without presenting a domestic justification. The cashier presses the keys, coins strike the metal drawer, paper bags fill the cart, and you carry home a week of decisions disguised as groceries. Everyone sees the food. Nobody sees the calculations that placed it there. The money has not stretched. You have. Those 17 cents eventually need somewhere to live. At the back of the linen closet, beneath towels nobody uses because they are considered too good, there may be an envelope. Inside is a quiet accumulation of grocery change, birthday money, earnings from occasional work, or cash preserved from a household allowance. Not every wife keeps such a reserve, and not every marriage makes one necessary. But private money can provide something a joint account does not always offer: choice without permission. It might pay for a child's shoes, an unexpected repair, a train ticket, or nothing at all. Nothing at all is important. The envelope exists because emergencies are easier to face when they do not first require a committee meeting. You choose the location carefully. A kitchen drawer is too public. A handbag may be opened for keys, tissues, or something a child insists you carry. The linen closet is quieter. It contains sheets, towels, soap, and respectability in folded form. Nobody investigates the good towels unless company arrives, and company rarely conducts a financial search. Private cash does not imply a secret life. Often it means preparedness. The car may need gasoline. A child may announce that school money is due tomorrow. A neighbour may collect for a gift. The doctor may prescribe something not covered by the week's budget. Cash turns these disruptions into errands rather than negotiations. The financial position of married women in the 1960s is more complicated than the popular claim that women simply could not hold bank accounts. Many women do have accounts, savings, wages, and property. Laws and practices vary. The sharper restriction is credit. Banks, lenders, and card issuers may discount a married woman's earnings, place accounts under her husband's name, or require a male signature. She may manage the household money for years while the resulting credit history belongs largely to him. This creates distance between responsibility and authority. You are trusted to keep the family clothed, fed, and supplied, but a larger financial decision may still be treated as belonging to your husband. You can stretch $20 across a week with precision, yet applying for credit may require the assistance of a man who cannot remember what milk costs. The envelope offers no interest, no statement, and no protection if the house burns down. It is not sophisticated banking. It is control in its most portable form. You know how much is there. You decide when it has become necessary. Nobody sends a notice, asks for a signature, or wonders whether the purchase contributes properly to family life. Sometimes the money pays for pleasure. A lipstick, a book, lunch with a friend, or a birthday present for your husband that is not purchased with money he handed you. The amount may be modest, but the privacy changes its meaning. Spending your own dollar feels different from requesting one, even when both dollars entered the house through the same front door. For women in unhappy or unsafe marriages, private cash can carry heavier importance. It may pay for a telephone call, a bus ticket, a night elsewhere, or the first small step toward leaving. Organized support is limited, and financial dependence can make departure difficult. The envelope cannot solve the problem, but it can make one decision possible without advance notice. Most days, however, nothing happens. The envelope remains behind the towels while the household continues around it. That is part of its value. Security is not only the ability to act, it is the knowledge that you could. You close the closet and return to the kitchen. The family speaks of the house, furniture, and bank account as ours. The $14 behind the towels require no cosigner. Cash is only one part of the domestic financial puzzle. The department store is warm, perfumed, and arranged to make restraint feel slightly old-fashioned. You need stockings, the children need clothes, and a new handbag has begun making a surprisingly persuasive case for itself. Store charge accounts and installment plans make purchases possible before the household cash is available, but married women still face serious discrimination in obtaining independent credit. Accounts are commonly connected to a husband's name and credit history. Even when the wife selects the goods, manages the payments, and remembers every due date, you become skilled at timing purchases and introducing new clothes gradually. When the dress finally appears, you explain that you have had it for ages, which is true if time is approached generously. Department store credit has existed for decades, but by the 1960s, consumer borrowing is becoming ordinary in American life. Stores issue charge plates or account cards, while bank cards begin advancing nationwide. Installment plans let families bring home furniture, appliances, and clothing while paying over time. The modern household can enjoy tomorrow's income months before it arrives. For a married woman, however, the account may identify her through her husband. A card or statement might identify you using Mrs. and your husband's full name. The purchases and monthly paperwork may be yours, but the financial identity remains stubbornly male. This arrangement gives you responsibility without recognition. You are expected to know what the children need, when sheets must be replaced, and whether your husband's suit has reached the end of diplomatic repair. You are expected to keep the balance reasonable. Yet obtaining credit in your own name can be difficult, especially when lenders discount women's earnings or assume paid employment will end with pregnancy. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act will not prohibit sex-based discrimination in credit until 1974. Inside the store, none of this feels dramatic. Soft music plays, saleswomen move between racks, the air smells of cosmetics, wool, polished counters, and the hope produced by flattering mirrors. You choose a dress, examine the stitching, and calculate its cost against several weeks of groceries. Then you present the account card belonging to a marriage. The secrecy surrounding purchases may be playful, anxious, or defensive depending on the household. A wife with a generous budget may enjoy teasing her husband about a new hat. Another may conceal the price because every personal expense invites criticism. Some husbands hide purchases too, particularly tools, sporting equipment, or anything described as an investment shortly before being placed in the garage. You develop methods. New clothes enter through the less visible door. Tags vanish immediately. The item rests in the closet before making its public debut, allowing time to season it into familiarity. When your husband notices, which may take several weeks, you look mildly surprised. This old thing has apparently been waiting years for his attention. Statements require separate management. You know roughly when they arrive and may collect the mail before dinner. This is not always an attempt to conceal disaster. Often it is an effort to avoid turning every pair of stockings into a household debate. The account is paid, the children are clothed, and civilization continues, although civilization has acquired a small finance charge. The deeper problem appears when a marriage ends, a husband dies, or a woman needs credit independently. Years of careful payments may have built his history rather than hers. She has done the purchasing, budgeting, remembering, and paying, yet the institution may regard her as financially new. For now, you hang the dress at the back of the closet and close the door. The account remembers your husband. The closet remembers you. After managing the bills, you may require 5 private minutes beside the laundry window. The washing machine turns, the window fan hums, and you hold a cigarette carefully away from your hair. Smoking is common during the 1960s, but where and how a respectable married woman smokes can still carry meaning. Some husbands dislike the smell, some dislike the expense, and some smoke freely themselves while finding the same habit less attractive in their wives. You keep mints in the cupboard, rinse the ashtray, and wave a dish towel through the air with the solemn determination of someone removing evidence from a crime scene. Unfortunately, cigarette smoke has a deep loyalty to curtains and refuses to cooperate. The secret is not necessarily the smoking itself. Cigarettes are everywhere, in elegant cases, office ashtrays, restaurants, airplanes, and waiting rooms. Guests may be offered one as naturally as coffee. The unusual part is that your cigarette must fit someone else's opinion of what a wife should smell like, spend money on, or do alone. Advertising teaches women that smoking looks refined, slender, and modern. Brands use fashionable clothing, manicured hands, and promises of mildness. Near the decade's end, Virginia Slims is marketed directly to women by linking cigarettes with progress. Liberation arrives in a narrow package and still requires purchase by the carton. The reality beside the laundry window is less polished. You strike a match. Smoke rises toward the curtain despite your instructions. Ash falls dangerously close to clean clothes. You take one breath while the washing machine enters its spin cycle with the enthusiasm of machinery that has not been informed this is a private moment. By the middle of the decade, cigarettes are acquiring a shadow. The United States Surgeon General's report in 1964 states that smoking causes serious disease. Warning labels begin appearing on cigarette packages in 1966. The old advertising fantasy has been disturbed. The cigarette is still glamorous, still ordinary, and increasingly accompanied by information nobody enjoys reading. You may respond by smoking less, attempting to quit, or deciding that one cigarette beside an open window does not constitute a national health crisis. Nicotine is not impressed by domestic scheduling. A habit shaped by advertising, routine, and dependence does not vanish because the package has developed a sentence in small print. Hiding the evidence involves its own ritual. The cigarette is extinguished thoroughly because secrecy should not set the laundry room on fire. The ashtray is emptied and rinsed. You wash your hands, check your lipstick, chew a mint, and spray something floral into the air. This produces a new atmosphere best described as lilacs experiencing combustion. Your children may know. Children notice everything adults believe they have concealed, especially when concealment involves an open window in winter. A neighbor may know because she has performed the same ceremony in her kitchen. Your husband may know and simply prefer the courteous arrangement in which neither of you mentions it. Marriage often contains small territories maintained by mutual lack of investigation. Not every woman hides her cigarettes, and many husbands have no objection. Some couples smoke together after dinner, filling the living room with a blue haze now absent from nostalgic photographs. The secret cigarette belongs to a narrower story about double standards, household money, private relief, and the expectation that a wife's habits should remain pleasing even when her husband's are merely habits. At last you close the window and return to the laundry. The cigarette is gone, the ashtray is clean, your breath is minty, your hands smell faintly of soap, and the curtains have absorbed the complete minutes of the meeting. You have kept the secret from everyone except the room. Once the smoke has settled, the afternoon becomes quiet again. The children are at school, the beds are made, and the clock has entered that long portion of the day in which 5 minutes can feel like a minor geological period. For some women, a private drink becomes part of the afternoon routine. It might be sherry, gin, or something poured modestly into a glass and returned to the cupboard before the family comes home. Drinking alone does not resemble the respectable image shown in advertisements, where alcohol usually appears beside a smiling couple and a bowl of perfectly obedient ice. So you take the edge off an afternoon that is not supposed to have an edge, rinse the glass, and return to ironing with renewed diplomatic stability. Alcohol fits comfortably into 1960s social life, at the proper hour, and in company. Cocktail parties are fashionable, guests are offered drinks. A husband returning from work may receive one, while his wife joins him with a garnished drink. Social drinking suggests hospitality and sophistication. Solitary drinking at 2 in the afternoon suggests a question nobody wants asked. Chemically, gin is unchanged by guests. The difference is presentation. A martini beside a cocktail dress is elegant. The same measure in a quiet kitchen while wearing house shoes carries a different biography. Context performs the moral work. For some women, the drink is occasional. It softens a lonely afternoon, follows a difficult telephone call, or marks 5 minutes before the children return. For others, the habit may become more regular, with the level in the bottle lowering in ways that require explanation. Women's problem drinking can remain hidden because it happens at home, where a respectable woman is supposed to be. The house provides privacy and camouflage. Bottles belong in the cabinet for guests. Sherry may be kept for cooking. Whiskey may belong to your husband, who is unlikely to measure it unless the decline becomes ambitious. You need no bar, no purchase by the glass, and no witness except the ice tray, which lacks the ability to telephone. You learn to pour carefully. A small glass leaves less evidence. Water can be added to bottles. though this risks creating a drink of such spiritual weakness that even your husband becomes observant. The glass is washed, dried, and returned. You chew a mint or drink coffee. The bottle turns so its label faces outward, looking formal and innocent among the others. Alcohol advertising rarely shows the anxious or isolated drinker. It shows polished couples, rooms, laughter, and glassware that cleans itself. The woman in these images is permitted pleasure, but her pleasure is controlled and attractive. She does not stand alone at a kitchen counter watching the second-hand move. Advertising is interested in women drinking, provided they make it look like hospitality. Not every private drink is a sign of dependence, just as not every hidden purchase means financial disaster. But secrecy can make it difficult to recognize when relief has become reliance. Medical understanding and treatment for women with alcohol problems are often limited by stigma. A man may be described as a heavy drinker. A woman risks being judged as an unfit wife or mother, which gives her a reason to keep the problem quiet. The afternoon continues. Sunlight shifts across the linoleum. The refrigerator clicks on, the iron releases a breath of steam, and the glass leaves a ring that you wipe away with your thumb. Nothing dramatic has happened. That is the arrangement. By the time the family returns, the bottle is back in place and dinner is underway. The house smells of onions, furniture polish, and respectable productivity. The ice has melted. The afternoon has not. For other women, relief comes with a doctor's instructions. Behind the aspirin and cold cream sits a small amber bottle bearing your name and the authority of modern medicine. Meprobamate, widely sold as Milltown since the 1950s, is followed by Librium in 1960 and Valium in 1963. By the end of the decade, women receive a large majority of prescriptions for certain tranquilizers. These drugs are prescribed for anxiety, tension, sleeplessness, and the broad category of nerves. Not every housewife takes them, and not every prescription is concealed, but medication can become one more private mechanism, keeping the cheerful domestic surface intact. The problem has not disappeared. It has become quieter, which the decade frequently mistakes for solved. The bottle looks official. Its typed label, measured dose, and physician's instructions separate it from the hidden drink. You are not indulging. You are following medical advice. The tablets are small and ordinary, hardly suggesting they are helping manage an entire household. Minor tranquilizers are promoted as answers to modern tension. Advertisements aimed at doctors describe anxious, sleepless patients and women overwhelmed by domestic responsibilities. The language is clinical, but the situations are familiar. Too much worry, too little rest, irritability, fatigue, and the sense that ordinary life has become difficult to carry. Medication offers relief without requiring the household to be rearranged. That convenience matters. Psychotherapy costs time and money and may carry stigma. Rest is difficult to prescribe when children, meals, laundry, and appointments continue to arrive. A tablet fits into the schedule. It can be swallowed at the bathroom sink between brushing your teeth and finding a missing shoe. Modern treatment has adapted itself to the fact that you are busy. For many patients, tranquilizers provide short-term relief. They reduce anxiety, ease tension, or make sleep possible after nights of wakefulness. The mistake is not that relief exists. The danger is that the medicines are presented as gentler and safer than older sedatives, while the risks of dependence, tolerance, and withdrawal receive far less attention than they deserve. You may begin with one tablet during a difficult week. Then the difficult week develops excellent attendance. The prescription is renewed. The bottle takes its place beside the cold cream, becoming part of the bathroom landscape. You notice when it is nearly empty with the same attention you give to toothpaste. Except toothpaste has never caused you to count backward from the next doctor's appointment. Secrecy varies from marriage to marriage. Your husband may know and approve if the medication makes you calmer or helps you sleep. He may dismiss it as something for nerves without asking what those nerves are reacting to. Or you may avoid mentioning it because emotional distress feels like failure in a culture that has promised domestic fulfillment as the reward of being a wife and mother. The medicine can soften the visible signs. You may stop crying in the afternoon. You may sleep through the night. Irritation becomes easier to swallow alongside the tablet. From outside, the treatment appears successful because the household is comfortable again. Whether you are comfortable is a test administered less often. The experience also varies by class and race. Access to sympathetic doctors, medical appointments, and regular prescriptions is uneven. The image of the tranquilized suburban housewife describes a real pattern, but not a universal female experience. Many women face distress without medical attention, while others are prescribed drugs instead of being offered meaningful support. At night, you open the cabinet beneath the hard bathroom light. The amber glass catches a warm reflection. You take the tablet, replace the cap, and return the bottle behind the aspirin. The label contains your name. The reasons belong to everyone else. The prescription bottle usually begins in an examination room smelling of disinfectant, paper, and the faint rubbery scent of medical equipment. You have come because you cannot sleep, your heart races, your head aches, or you have begun crying in rooms where crying is inconvenient. The doctor listens, perhaps kindly and perhaps impatiently, before placing your distress beneath a familiar label, nerves. Women's emotional and physical complaints could be minimized, medicalized, or separated from the circumstances producing them. The workload, the loneliness, the financial anxiety, and the unhappy marriage remain outside the diagnosis, like relatives who are not invited inside. You leave with instructions to rest more, although nobody has explained who will perform your life while you are resting. Nerves is a useful word because it sounds medical while remaining broad enough to contain almost anything. Sleeplessness fits inside it, along with trembling hands, digestive trouble, headaches, irritability, exhaustion, sadness, and a racing heart. The label acknowledges that something is wrong without requiring agreement about the cause. The family doctor may know you well. He may have delivered your children and treated your husband. He may be compassionate, order tests, recognize depression, or recommend change. But medicine in the 1960s also carries assumptions about women that shape what gets heard. Distress may be attributed to hormones, temperament, marriage, motherhood, or an inability to adjust to a life the culture insists should be fulfilling. You sit on the paper-covered examination table and attempt to explain. The paper crackles beneath you with every movement, providing a dramatic soundtrack. You say you are tired. The doctor asks whether you sleep enough. You say you cannot sleep because you are worried. He asks whether you have tried relaxing. The consultation has travelled in a circle and arrived where it began. A physical complaint can be difficult. Real medical conditions may be dismissed as emotional, while emotional suffering may appear through physical symptoms because headaches and stomach pain are easier to report than despair. The boundary between body and mind is treated as tidy on paper and proves less cooperative inside a woman. Treatment depends on the doctor, the symptoms, and the resources available. You may be offered a tranquilizer, a sedative, a tonic, vitamins, advice to exercise, or a recommendation to take a holiday. A holiday is an elegant prescription for someone whose labour follows her into every room and would require advance arrangements with children, money, transportation, meals, and the husband asking what time dinner will be. Psychotherapy is available to some women, especially those with money, access, and doctors willing to refer them. Yet it can be expensive and stigmatized. Seeking psychiatric help may suggest that you are unstable, a word with consequences for marriage, employment, reputation, and even custody if family life later breaks apart. Silence can therefore appear safer than treatment, even when silence is doing no therapeutic work. Race and class alter the examination room. Black women, poor women, rural women, and women without insurance or transportation may face limited access, discriminatory treatment, or no consistent doctor at all. The suburban patient with an amber bottle represents only one portion of a much larger history of women attempting to have pain taken seriously. You accept the prescription and dress behind the curtain. The doctor has perhaps helped. The medicine may ease the immediate symptoms and relief matters, but the questions left unasked return home with you. The workload remains, the money remains tight, the marriage remains whatever it was before the appointment. At home, you place the bottle in the cabinet and read the instruction to take one tablet when needed. What you need is rest. What you have is a tablet and 6 loads of laundry. After counting calories, you must attend to another form of bodily administration that polite conversation prefers not to acknowledge. Once a month, the bathroom cabinet contains a packet of sanitary pads, perhaps tucked behind towels or beneath the sink, where your husband can continue believing that feminine life proceeds without maintenance. Disposable pads are widely available during the 1960s, but many still have long tabs designed to fasten to a sanitary belt worn beneath your underwear. The arrangement is bulky, warm, and capable of shifting at precisely the moment you have worn a pale skirt. You check the calendar, carry a spare inside your handbag, and become temporarily responsible for managing a biological event that advertisements discuss as though it were a minor problem involving freshness and confidence. The belt is a narrow elastic contraption worn around the waist or hips, with clips hanging at the front and back. A pad is secured between them. In theory, everything remains neatly in place. In practice, the pad can twist, the clips can press into your skin, and the belt can announce itself beneath fitted clothing with all the discretion of a small suspension bridge. Adhesive pads that attach directly to underwear will become common in the following decade. For now, belts remain familiar equipment, sold beside disposable pads in drugstores and department stores. Reusable cloth pads also remain in use, especially where cost, preference, or availability makes disposables less practical. Menstrual life, like most domestic life, varies considerably by income and household. The body keeps its schedule regardless of whether the household budget has allocated a department for it. Tampons are another option. Commercial brands have been sold in the United States since the 1930s, but not every woman uses them. Cost, comfort, personal preference, limited information, and persistent anxieties influence the choice. Some mothers discourage unmarried daughters from using them because of myths connecting tampons with virginity. Anatomy has once again been assigned a moral department. Purchasing supplies can require a performance of casual indifference. You place the packet beside toothpaste or cold cream and hope the clerk handles it without ceremony. Products are advertised through careful language such as sanitary protection, avoiding direct descriptions of blood or pain. The monthly reality can interrupt school, work, sleep, and household labor, but the vocabulary arrives wearing white gloves. At home, disposal requires privacy. A used pad is wrapped in paper and placed in a wastebasket, preferably one with a lid. Flushing it risks plumbing consequences, and the household already contains enough machines waiting to betray you. In public restrooms, metal disposal boxes or incinerators may be provided, though cleanliness and availability vary. Pain is managed with aspirin, a hot water bottle, rest when possible, and the knowledge that breakfast will not prepare itself out of sympathy. Severe cramps or heavy bleeding may be dismissed as part of being a woman. You learn to continue shopping, typing, cooking, and smiling while your lower abdomen conducts an argument nobody else has been invited to hear. Your husband may know when your period arrives. He may be considerate, embarrassed, teasing, or determined to avoid the subject. What remains hidden is often not the fact itself, but the equipment, inconvenience, pain, and constant planning surrounding it. The finished result is another form of domestic invisibility. You wash your hands, return the packet behind the towels, and check your skirt once more in the mirror. The decade calls this protection. Mostly, it is you protecting the decade from information. Once the monthly equipment has been returned to hiding, the bathroom becomes a laboratory for a different secret. A towel is wrapped around your shoulders, rubber gloves cover your hands, and a bottle of hair color waits beside the sink with instructions that have suddenly become very serious about timing. Home hair coloring expands rapidly after the introduction of easier one-step products in the 1950s. By the 1960s, women can lighten, darken, or cover grey hair without making every visit to a salon public knowledge. The finished shade is expected to look natural, which means the chemical smell, stained towel, darkened hairline, and anxious waiting period must disappear before anyone sees them. Your husband may admire how young you look. He is not invited to meet the peroxide responsible. Grey hair carries different meanings for men and women. A man may acquire distinction at the temples. You are more likely to receive advice. Youthful appearance is treated as part of feminine upkeep, especially in advertising aimed at married women who are warned, gently but persistently, that looking tired or older may affect romance, confidence, and social success. Hair dye is not new. Women have coloured their hair for centuries, and commercial dyes existed long before the 1960s. What changes is convenience. Miss Clairol, introduced in the mid-1950s, combines lightening and colouring in a single process. The famous advertising question, "Does she or doesn't she?" turns concealment into the product's central promise. Only her hairdresser knows for sure, which is useful because her husband apparently has not received clearance. Before colouring day, you perform the recommended allergy test, because the chemicals can irritate skin or cause a reaction. Then comes the old towel, the gloves, and a thin line of cream around the hairline to reduce staining. You mix the solution, apply it carefully to the roots, and discover that the back of your own head remains a country with limited transportation. The smell is sharp and unmistakable. You open the window, though fresh air in the bathroom may conflict with the need to keep the process private. Drops land on porcelain and must be wiped quickly. One reaches the bath mat, where it begins a permanent second career as evidence. Timing matters. Rinse too soon and the grey may remain visible. Wait too long and the colour may become darker or harsher than intended. You watch the clock while sitting in a robe, unable to answer the door without creating several new neighbourhood theories. The telephone rings. You allow it to ring, sacrificing social contact to chemistry. After rinsing, the water runs tinted into the basin. You shampoo, condition, dry, and arrange the result. Some women visit salons instead, where professionals manage formulas, roots, highlights, and the useful fiction that the appointment was merely a trim. Others colour at home to save money or preserve privacy. Not every woman hides it, but the ideal of effortless beauty encourages discretion about the labour involved. The secrecy can be playful, burdensome, or both. You may enjoy changing your shade and the control it offers. You may resent the suggestion that grey hair requires correction. Most likely, your feelings change according to the mirror, the price of the bottle, and whether the bath mat can be turned around. By evening, the gloves are rinsed, the packaging is buried, and the window has carried away most of the smell. You enter the kitchen with smooth hair and an expression of complete innocence. Your colour is natural. It has simply required instructions, chemicals, and strict confidentiality. The calendar has been counted, the possibility of pregnancy has been considered, and now the marriage itself requires a little private research. Beneath a novel on the bedside table sits a book with a sober title involving marital happiness, adjustment, or the modern woman. You read it after your husband falls asleep, turning each page carefully so the paper does not crackle. During the 1960s, questions about intimacy are entering public discussion through marriage manuals, magazine columns, medical writing, and new research into human sexuality. Yet speaking plainly inside an actual marriage can remain difficult. You may be expected to understand your husband's needs while presenting none complicated enough to require a conversation. The book promises mutual understanding. You begin by hiding it under something less dangerous. Marriage advice is not new. Physicians, psychologists, counselors, and etiquette writers have long offered instructions about what husbands and wives owe one another. Much of the older advice treats marital harmony as a project managed by the wife. She is encouraged to be affectionate but modest, responsive but not demanding, and honest without saying anything that might disturb dinner. New research begins unsettling some of these assumptions. Alfred Kinsey's report on female sexual behaviour appeared in the 1950s, bringing private experiences into public argument. In 1966, William Masters and Virginia Johnson published Human Sexual Response, based on laboratory observation of physical responses during sexual activity. Their work challenges myths, supplies clinical language, and confirms that women's experiences are more complex than many marriage manuals have found convenient. The language is scientific, which makes reading it feel both respectable and faintly illicit. Terms involving physiology sit on the page with the calm confidence of plumbing instructions. You are relieved to discover that questions you considered personal failures have diagrams, patterns, and apparently an entire research department. Access to useful information still depends upon where you live, what your library carries, and which books a local shop is willing to display. Some manuals provide thoughtful guidance. Others repeat rigid gender roles or imply that nearly every marital problem can be corrected by a wife becoming more attractive, less tired, and mysteriously available after completing the dishes. You compare the printed marriage with your own. Perhaps affection is present, but conversation is not. Perhaps your husband assumes silence means satisfaction. Perhaps you have never been encouraged to describe what you want, because a respectable woman is expected to possess instincts rather than vocabulary. Instincts are wonderfully discreet, but they are poor at arranging appointments. They also struggle to explain why affection can survive, while pleasure, confidence, or simple curiosity remains entirely unspoken. The book cannot tell you whether speaking will bring closeness, embarrassment, anger, or relief. It can only confirm that the subject exists. That alone may feel important. A private thought becomes a sentence. A sentence can eventually become a request, and a request is much harder to dismiss as a vague feminine mood. You hear your husband turn beside you. The book closes immediately. Not every husband would object, and some couples read such material together. But if yours believes a successful marriage should require no instruction, the manual may seem less like help than evidence that someone has failed. An examination nobody knew was being held. You slide it beneath the novel and switch off the lamp. The room returns to darkness, but one question remains awake. The marriage is private. Apparently, this includes keeping parts of it private from the marriage. The private questions of marriage eventually meet another subject. Polite households prefer to call the change. You are standing beside the stove when heat rises suddenly across your chest and face, as though someone has opened a furnace beneath your collar. The kitchen is already warm, so you blame the oven. Later, when the same heat arrives beside an open window, the explanation becomes less cooperative. Menopause is a normal stage of life, but during the 1960s, it is often discussed in whispers, euphemisms, or medical language that treats aging femininity as a condition requiring correction. You loosen your collar, powder your forehead, and continue stirring the sauce. Your husband asks whether the room feels warm. You tell him dinner is nearly ready. Menopause usually arrives gradually. Periods become irregular before stopping, and the transition may bring hot flashes, night sweats, disrupted sleep, headaches, or changes in mood. Experiences vary enormously. Some women find the symptoms mild. Others spend months or years negotiating with a body that has abandoned the household timetable. The secrecy comes partly from embarrassment and partly from what menopause is understood to represent. Fertility has been treated as a central feature of womanhood. Its ending can therefore be described not simply as a biological transition but as a loss of youth, attractiveness, and purpose. A man growing older may be called seasoned. You are offered a cream. Medical responses are changing. Estrogen has been prescribed to some menopausal women since before the 1960s. During this decade, hormone treatment is promoted more aggressively, particularly after the publication of Feminine Forever in 1966. Its author, physician Robert Wilson, presents menopause as an estrogen deficiency condition and argues that treatment can preserve youthfulness and femininity. The promise is powerful, but the message carries an unpleasant implication. Aging is presented as a failure of maintenance, and femininity as something that may expire unless renewed by prescription. Medical knowledge about the benefits and risks of long-term hormone use is still developing. A woman seeking help may receive useful relief, dismissive reassurance, or an enthusiastic prescription accompanied by very little discussion. You may also say nothing. A cold cloth, lighter nightclothes, an open window, and a bedside glass of water become private equipment. At 3 a.m, you throw back the covers while your husband sleeps beneath them, peacefully unaware that the mattress has developed separate climate zones. Daytime requires further improvisation. A sudden flush during a luncheon or shop visit must be treated as though the weather has made an individual decision about you. Makeup can soften the redness. A handkerchief handles perspiration. You stand near doors and windows with the strategic instincts of someone planning an escape from central heating. There can be relief as well. The fear of pregnancy recedes after menopause is established. Monthly bleeding and its equipment end. Some women feel freer, steadier, or pleased to leave reproductive uncertainty behind. Others experience grief or discomfort. Many feel several things at once, which is inconvenient for a culture that prefers women to select one emotion and serve it neatly. You are not disappearing. You are moving into another stage of life, carrying knowledge, work, friendships, and ambitions that have not evaporated with estrogen. The difficulty is persuading the surrounding world to view maturity as something other than a cosmetic emergency. You turn down the oven and open the kitchen window. Cool air enters, lifting the curtains slightly. Dinner was never responsible. It has simply agreed to take the blame. When private reading does not answer every question, you take out a sheet of writing paper after the house has settled. The letter begins with words you would never say at breakfast. Perhaps your husband controls the money, your mother-in-law has acquired a key, your marriage has gone quiet, or your teenager has returned home wearing an expression that clearly requires professional interpretation. Newspaper advice columns offer a peculiar form of privacy during the 1960s. You can tell a stranger the truth, sign the letter with a name such as Worried in Ohio, and wait to see whether your private confusion becomes public guidance. The entire country may read the answer. With luck, nobody at your own table will recognize the question. Advice columns are established newspaper fixtures by this period. Ann Landers and Dear Abby appear in papers across the country, offering brisk responses to problems involving marriage, family, manners, money, loneliness, and changing social customs. Ann Landers is written by Eppie Lederer from the mid-1950s. Dear Abby begins shortly afterward under Pauline Phillips, writing as Abigail Van Buren. They provide a surprisingly national conversation conducted through small domestic crises, one carefully clipped newspaper square at a time. Their columns feel intimate despite their enormous readership. A letter may contain only a few paragraphs, but within them, a writer can admit what has been edited from conversation for years. The signature protects identity while summarizing the problem with remarkable efficiency. Bewildered wife has no surname, but she does have a deadline. You draft cautiously. The first version sounds too angry, so you soften it. The second protects everyone except you. On the third attempt, you describe what happened without adding an apology after every sentence. This alone is useful. Writing forces the problem to stand still long enough to be examined. The advice you receive, if your letter is chosen, may be practical, witty, conventional, or unexpectedly bold. Columnists sometimes recommend honest conversation, professional counseling, legal help, firmer boundaries, or simple tolerance. Their answers reflect the assumptions of the era, and not every response will age gracefully. Still, the columns acknowledge publicly that respectable homes contain conflict. This is more radical than the cheerful advertisements nearby would suggest. You may never mail the letter. Many questions are answered partly by the act of composing them. Once written, the sentence, "I am unhappy," looks different from the vague heaviness carried between rooms. Ink gives it edges. You can fold it, destroy it, revise it, or place it inside an envelope, but you can no longer pretend it has no language. If you do send it, you address the envelope, attach a stamp, and walk to the mailbox alone. The metal door makes a small sound when it closes. There is no immediate reply, no glowing screen, and no way to retrieve the letter because courage has reconsidered on the walk home. The postal service now possesses your marriage. Weeks later, you open the newspaper carefully. Most letters never appear, and published ones may be edited for length or clarity. Yet you read every answer, looking for your own circumstances inside someone else's initials. Even when the problem belongs to another reader, the advice may reach you. Soon the children will return, bringing emergencies that require direct management rather than a stamped envelope. For now, you fold the newspaper and place it beneath the placemats. Your secret may have travelled across the country. At home, it has not moved an inch. Medicine does not concern itself only with nerves. It may also arrive in the form of an appetite suppressant and a firm suggestion that you reduce. Lunch is cottage cheese, half a grapefruit, and a lettuce leaf displaying all the emotional warmth of office stationery. Women's magazines publish slimming plans beside recipes for cakes, casseroles, and party dips, leaving you responsible for preparing food continuously while appearing not to desire any. Some physicians prescribe stimulant diet pills, adding pharmaceutical efficiency to an already exhausting standard. You serve the family meat and potatoes, claim you are not hungry, and later stand at the counter eating bread over the sink. The secret snack is not dramatic rebellion, but it contains butter, which helps. Slimness remains a demand even as the preferred silhouette changes. Early 1960s fashion values a shaped, controlled figure. Later, models popularize a narrow, angular look designed for people who regard lunch as a rumor. Whatever your age or build, magazines offer improvement with the confidence of organizations that will not attend dinner with you. Diet advice arrives in tidy columns. Avoid bread and potatoes, count calories, eat grapefruit, fill a plate with cottage cheese and call it satisfying. Meal replacements such as Metrical promise nutrition in a can, allowing you to experience lunch without becoming emotionally involved in food. The flavors include chocolate, vanilla, and the sense that something important has been omitted. Prescription appetite suppressants offer another route. Amphetamine-based diet pills are widely used during the post-war decades, prescribed to women for weight loss and energy. They can reduce appetite and increase alertness, which sounds useful when you must eat less while doing more. Risks, including dependence, sleeplessness, and cardiovascular effects, are not always emphasized equally. You take a tablet and discover that hunger retreats while energy becomes organized. Cupboards are cleaned, floors receive attention they did not request. By evening, sleep may become difficult, leading back towards sedatives or tranquilizers. Modern medicine has created appointments for the accelerator and the brake. Dieting does not remove you from food. You still plan meals, shop, pack lunches, bake cakes, fry bacon, butter vegetables, and watch everyone eat. The family's appetite is evidence of health. Your appetite is treated as a character flaw requiring supervision. You must produce abundance while consuming restraint at the same table. At dinner, you take a smaller portion and say you had a large lunch. This is untrue unless disappointment has become measurable by volume. Your husband eats without noticing, or notices and wisely says nothing. The children ask why you are not having potatoes. You explain that you do not want any, a statement so implausible that even the youngest studies you. Later, hunger returns without concern for the magazine schedule. You cut bread, spread butter across it, and eat standing up because sitting would make the event official. Crumbs fall onto the counter. The refrigerator hums beside you with the neutrality of an appliance that has seen family members behave strangely around food. Not every woman diets, and body ideals are not experienced identically. Age, class, race, health, region, pregnancy, and work shape the pressure differently. The thin ideal of the later decade reflects white youth culture, even while magazines present it as universal. Real women continue possessing hips, appetites, and lives that do not fit into a calorie chart. The private snack reveals the contradiction. You are not weak because you became hungry after eating half a grapefruit. You are a mammal responding correctly to inadequate lunch. The period prefers a more moral explanation. You wipe away the crumbs and return the butter to the refrigerator. Tomorrow's diet remains intact because nobody saw tonight's evidence. Apparently, calories also observe social rules. Weight is only one department in the larger administrative office of feminine appearance. Your husband may compliment your natural beauty without witnessing the rollers, setting lotion, depilatory cream, foundation, cold cream, hair pieces, and concentrated engineering required to produce it. The ideal wife is expected to remain attractive, while making attractiveness seem like a stable condition of her species. You wake early, close the bathroom door, and complete the work before the household audience assembles. Cosmetics and salon visits also cost money, creating another budgetary mystery when beauty is expected, but its maintenance is treated as optional. By breakfast, your hair curves obediently, your lipstick is even, and the night's private construction site has been cleared away. Hair turns bedtime into a technical procedure. You divide it, dampen it, apply setting lotion, and wind it around rollers. Sleeping requires a close relationship with discomfort. Foam rollers are softer than metal ones, but softness is relative when several dozen cylinders occupy the space between your head and the pillow. In the morning, each roller is removed and the result assessed. A successful curl is brushed into place. An unsuccessful one is persuaded with pins, spray, and language unsuitable for breakfast. Hairspray helps the arrangement withstand weather, housework, and a child embracing you around the head. The style must appear controlled without looking armoured, though it may possess similar properties. The salon offers professional assistance. Beneath a hooded dryer, warm air blows while magazines collect in your lap, and women discuss families, prices, illnesses, and absent neighbours. A regular shampoo and set can be respectable maintenance, but it costs money and time. You may describe the appointment as necessary because beauty expenses are easier to defend as household upkeep. Cosmetics create another sequence. Cold cream removes yesterday before foundation begins today. Powder reduces shine. Rouge restores the colour the powder has removed. Eyebrow pencil replaces whatever fashion decided should not remain where nature placed it. Mascara darkens the lashes, lipstick redraws the mouth, and a tissue removes enough evidence to make everything seem effortless. The preferred look shifts through the decade. Early styles favour polished complexions, defined lips, shaped brows, and structured hair. Later youth fashions bring paler lips, heavier eye makeup, false lashes, straighter hair, and supposedly natural faces requiring a new collection of products. The definition of natural changes regularly, which is useful for the cosmetics industry. Hairpieces and wigs offer more possibilities. A fall adds length, a small piece creates height, and a wig provides a finished style when your hair has declined negotiations. Synthetic fibers make some pieces more affordable. They still require matching, brushing, storing, and the hope that nobody hugs you with unusual enthusiasm. Hair removal occupies the less glamorous portion. Legs and underarms are shaved or treated with depilatory products. Tweezers attend to smaller disputes. None of this should be visible, including the irritation or pieces of tissue applied when the razor becomes ambitious. Smoothness is presented as natural, despite nature having made its position clear. Not every woman follows every practice. Age, race, class, region, occupation, taste, and hair texture create different routines and standards. Black women may press, straighten, set, or wear their hair in styles shaped by community traditions and discriminatory white beauty expectations. By the later 1960s, natural black hairstyles become powerful expressions of identity and pride. At last, you clean the sink, cap the bottles, store the rollers, and remove the towel protecting your dress. Your husband sees the finished face and says you look lovely without makeup. You thank him. There is no reason to involve him in the manufacturing process. Beneath the carefully maintained surface is the machinery responsible for its shape. Elastic panels negotiate fiercely with your internal organs, while garters hold your stockings in place. Girdles remain common through much of the 1960s, even as younger fashions and pantyhose begin loosening older rules. They create the controlled silhouette expected beneath many dresses and skirts, but they also pinch, roll, trap heat, and remind you throughout the day that comfort has not been invited to participate in your appearance. You remove yours the moment privacy permits, then restore it before dinner or company arrives. Your husband sees the finished outline. The garment responsible is lying across the bed, recovering from what it has done. The girdle belongs to the family of foundation garments, a phrase suggesting that your body is a building whose natural structure has failed inspection. Some are brief and flexible. Others extend from waist to thigh, attach to garters, and use panels to flatten the stomach and smooth the hips. Putting one on requires both hands, determination, and something sturdy nearby. You step into it and pull upward in stages. The fabric resists because resistance is its profession. Once everything is where the manufacturer intended, you attach stockings to the garters and check the seams. A crooked seam down the back of the leg can make a respectable outfit look as though it has lost directional confidence. Advertising presents the girdle as freedom. New elastic fibers, lighter fabrics, and improved construction promise flexibility and control. Models bend, stretch, and smile while wearing garments that appear to have solved the human body. The word comfort appears. Comfort, in this setting, means the garment permits breathing while continuing to express reservations about lunch. The experience depends on fit, weather, and the length of the day. Elastic may roll at the waist, garters tug, stockings pull unevenly. Sitting can force the garment upward, while standing requires it to be discreetly restored. In summer, layers trap heat beneath dresses that are supposed to look cool and effortless. You smile while calculating when you can return home and become your original dimensions. Pantyhose begin changing the arrangement. Introduced commercially near the end of the 1950s, they grow increasingly popular during the 1960s as hemlines rise. Stockings attached to garters are poorly suited to miniskirts because the engineering becomes visible. Pantyhose combine waist, legs, and hosiery into one garment, eliminating garter clips and simplifying the silhouette. Progress does not abolish discomfort. It merely rearranges the fastenings. Generational differences appear quickly. A younger woman in a short skirt may wear tights or pantyhose and regard her mother's girdle as an artifact. An older woman may consider an unsupported figure unfinished, regardless of younger fashion. Many women continue wearing girdles because clothes are cut with them in mind, because habit feels proper, or because the garment provides support they prefer. Not every woman experiences the girdle only as oppression. Some appreciate the smooth line, the support, or the confidence it gives beneath fitted clothing. The problem lies less in the existence of the garment than in the idea that wearing it is simply what a respectable woman does, while the effort and discomfort remain unmentioned. At home, privacy changes everything. The bedroom door closes, shoes come off, stocking clips are released one by one. The girdle is rolled downward with the steady concentration of someone escaping a tightly upholstered chair. Your skin carries pale red marks where elastic has spent the day making its argument. You place the garment over a chair and stand for a moment in complete structural freedom. Then the doorbell rings. Respectability has arrived early, and it has brought no warning. Control over your waistline is expected. Control over pregnancy is far more controversial. In 1960, the Food and Drug Administration approves the first oral contraceptive for birth control, offering married women a powerful new means of planning their families. Obtaining and using it can still involve doctors, husbands, religious teaching, local restrictions, health concerns, and intense social judgment. The Supreme Court's decision in Griswold v. Connecticut in 1965 protects married couples' access to contraception, but that does not make every personal conversation easy. You keep the packet behind cosmetics or folded handkerchiefs, where something capable of altering the course of your life sits quietly beside the cold cream. The first pill approved specifically as an oral contraceptive is Enovid. It arrives in an era when family planning is often discussed through careful phrases, lowered voices, and pamphlets that look as though they contain instructions for operating farm machinery. You do not simply select it from a shelf. You need a prescription, which means explaining your private life to a physician who may be helpful, disapproving, or impressively skilled at asking personal questions while studying his desk. If you are married, access is easier than it is for an unmarried woman, but easier does not mean simple. State laws differ. The Connecticut statute challenged in Griswold forbids the use of contraceptives, though enforcement is uncommon. Elsewhere, physicians and clinics interpret rules differently, and personal beliefs may shape what information reaches you. A legal right can open the door while leaving several uncomfortable people standing in the doorway. The appeal is immediate. Before the pill, avoiding pregnancy may involve condoms, diaphragms, spermicides, periodic abstinence, or a hopeful dependence on timing. Each method carries inconvenience or uncertainty. A daily tablet allows you greater control without interrupting the evening to assemble equipment whose packaging has all the romance of a plumbing repair. That control can affect nearly every room in the house. You may space births, limit the size of your family, return to paid work, continue your education, or recover between pregnancies. You can make plans extending farther than the next missed period. These possibilities are deeply personal, yet they also reshape marriages, employment, and women's expectations of their own futures. The early pill is not a delicate medication. Its hormone doses are much higher than those used in later formulations. Nausea, headaches, breast tenderness, weight changes, and irregular bleeding may follow. More serious risks, including blood clots, become the subject of growing concern. During the decade, many women received too little explanation about side effects, and printed patient information supplied with modern prescriptions is not yet standard practice. So you watch your body closely. A headache may be ordinary, or it may acquire the significance of a telegram. You mark days discreetly, remember tablets, and keep appointments. Missing a dose produces the sort of mental arithmetic that can make 3 hours feel like an entire fiscal year. Your husband may know and approve. He may object, worry, or prefer not to discuss it. The packet is not always hidden from him, of course. But for a woman whose husband claims final authority over family size, concealment can seem like the only available form of self-government. That choice carries practical and emotional risks, especially inside a marriage where privacy is treated as suspicious. At night, you open the cabinet after the bathroom door has clicked shut. The air smells of talcum powder and toothpaste. You take one small tablet with water, return the packet to its hiding place, and switch off the light. The most important decision in the house has made no sound at all. 17. The pregnancy fear carried quietly through breakfast. Even with new contraceptive choices, certainty is never absolute. Your monthly calendar has become a document of national importance, although it remains tucked inside a drawer beneath old greeting cards. A late period may mean another child, another medical expense, and another rearrangement of a life already fitted tightly around everyone else's needs. Even within affectionate marriages, women may carry the first days of uncertainty privately, waiting before telling their husbands because certainty itself is a luxury. You make coffee, pack lunches, and calculate dates while the family discusses weather and traffic. Nobody sees that the ordinary kitchen has become a waiting room. The toast pops up with unnecessary confidence. You begin by counting backward. There was the school meeting, the dinner at your sister's house, and the Tuesday when the washing machine leaked. Domestic disasters make surprisingly useful calendar markers. You count again, because arithmetic under anxiety develops its own rules and occasionally moves Thursday. A delayed period can have many causes, including stress, illness, weight change, or an irregular cycle. Knowing this does not quiet the question. Every ordinary sensation becomes evidence. Fatigue is suspicious. An unsettled stomach is suspicious. Wanting pickles is unhelpful, because popular culture has already appointed the pickle official spokesman for pregnancy. There is no home pregnancy test waiting discreetly at the drugstore. Reliable home kits will not reach American consumers until the 1970s. During the 1960s, you generally need a physician and a laboratory. Tests commonly examine urine for hormonal signs of pregnancy, but the procedure is slower and less sensitive than the tests familiar decades later. You may be told to wait until your period is well overdue before submitting a sample. Earlier biological tests used animals such as rabbits, mice, frogs, or toads. Urine was injected into the animal, whose physical response could reveal pregnancy hormones. The famous phrase about the rabbit dying is misleading. In the rabbit test, the animal was killed so its ovaries could be examined whether the result was positive or negative. History has many euphemisms, but few have required this much laboratory clarification. By the 1960s, laboratory methods are changing, and immunological tests that use antibodies are becoming available. Still, results are not immediate. You make an appointment, answer questions about dates, and carry a specimen through a medical office while trying to look as though the contents of your handbag are ordinary. Waiting leaves room for practical calculations. Where would a crib go? Can the budget stretch to another hospital bill, another pair of shoes, another mouth at the table? If you already have children, pregnancy is not an abstract blessing or burden. It is measured in interrupted sleep, laundry, grocery money, and the years before the youngest begins school. It may also affect paid employment. Employers can dismiss pregnant workers or require them to leave once pregnancy becomes visible. Formal protections against pregnancy discrimination are still years away. A woman planning to return to work, keep a job, or finish her education may see a late period as a quiet redirection of the map. Perhaps you want another child, just not now. Perhaps you do not want one at all. Perhaps you have learned that gratitude is expected before you have decided what you feel, so you postpone the conversation until there is something definite to say. This is not necessarily deception. Sometimes it is simply an attempt to possess your own uncertainty before it becomes household property. Morning continues. You rinse cups, wipe crumbs from the table, and hear the front door close behind your husband. Then you stand alone in the kitchen, one hand resting on the cool counter. For now, the family schedule contains one appointment nobody has written down. Wait. The children already present are creating their own emergencies. At 3:15, one child has broken a lamp, another has brought home a troubling school report, and a third has painted something that was not previously considered paintable. You now have until your husband returns to decide which events require disclosure and which can be absorbed into the general administration of motherhood. In many households, mothers serve as emotional buffers between children and fathers, particularly where paternal authority is associated with discipline rather than daily negotiation. You repair, conceal, coach, and warn. By dinner, the cracked side of the lamp faces the wall, the school report is beneath a magazine, and the children understand that tonight would be an excellent evening to discuss nothing. The afternoon begins with the screen door slamming and the arrival of shoes, satchels, lunch boxes, and explanations. As the parent at home, the facts come to you first. This grants authority and makes you the department receiving damaged goods. You examine the lamp. The shade is bent, the ceramic base is cracked, and nobody touched it. This last detail is presented unanimously, despite the physical limitations of lamps. You gather fragments from the carpet and ask questions while one child studies the ceiling with scholarly interest. A low mark may mean stricter homework, a teacher meeting, or punishment from a father who expects results but has not witnessed the struggle with long division. You know whether the child has been careless, confused, frightened, or defeated by arithmetic. You possess context, but context rarely looks as impressive at dinner as a letter grade printed in red. Popular images of family life often place the father at the head of the table as final authority. Television fathers may solve problems with patient speeches, but real households vary widely. Some fathers are warm and involved, others leave routine childcare to their wives and appear when judgment is required, like a domestic Supreme Court that also wants potatoes. Physical punishment remains widely accepted during the decade, at home and in many schools. A child may fear a spanking, lost privileges, extra chores, or merely the phrase, "Wait until your father gets home." The warning is useful because it postpones action while borrowing someone else's authority. It also places you in the curious position of both prosecutor and defense counsel. You decide what must be reported. A serious problem cannot be hidden without becoming larger. A minor one might be repaired, paid for from grocery savings, or treated as a lesson already learned. Concealment is not always indulgence. Sometimes you know that the child has understood the mistake and that a second punishment will add fear rather than wisdom. The repair proceeds at the kitchen table. Glue gives off its sharp chemical smell. You press the ceramic pieces together and hold them while the clock ticks. The painted wall receives soap, water, and private remarks about washable finishes. The school report remains nearby, radiating administrative disappointment. Before dinner, you conduct a briefing. The lamp is not to be touched, the wall is not to be mentioned. The report will be discussed later, after you have chosen the time and softened the approach. Each child nods with the grave attention of a junior diplomat who has just learned that dessert depends upon international stability. Then the car enters the driveway. Chairs scrape, hands are washed, and innocent expressions appear with suspicious speed. Your husband steps inside and asks whether anything interesting happened today. You look at the repaired lamp, the pale patch on the wall, and 3 children chewing as though silence were part of the meal. Nothing unusual, you say, which is less a lie than the official household summary. Once the children have been stabilized, you telephone someone who understands the operation. The kitchen telephone has a long cord, allowing you to stretch it into the pantry, hallway, or nearest corner, offering the illusion of privacy. Female friendship travels through these wires. You discuss money, marriage, children, doctors, in-laws, loneliness, and the baffling behavior of appliances with another woman performing a similar life several streets away. What may be dismissed as gossip can function as an informal network of intelligence, emotional support, practical advice, and warnings. You lower your voice when footsteps approach, not because every subject is scandalous, but because some conversations belong to the person having them. Privacy extends exactly as far as the telephone cord. The instrument is built from hard plastic and confidence. You lift the receiver, hear the dial tone, and place a finger into the rotary dial. Each number travels around and returns with a clicking sound that makes a casual call feel recorded by machinery. In many homes, there is only one telephone. An extension is useful but not guaranteed, and a cordless telephone belongs to the future. The family phone sits where everyone can hear it ring and notice how long you speak. Privacy is less an architectural feature than a posture adopted while facing pantry shelves. If you live in an area still served by a party line, the situation becomes more communal. Several households may share the circuit, each recognized by its own ringing pattern. You can lift the receiver and discover neighbors talking. They should hang up when they hear you. Human nature, having received no such instruction from the telephone company, may remain quietly attached. Even on a private line, interruption is easy. A child can pick up another receiver. Your husband may enter the room. Someone may call out a question when you are explaining that nobody in the family ever gives you 5 uninterrupted minutes. The telephone cord catches beneath a chair leg and pulls you back toward public life. Your friend listens without requiring the polished account. You can tell her the washing machine repair cost more than expected, the doctor called your headaches nerves, or your husband has been silent for 3 evenings and insists nothing is wrong. She may not solve the problem, but she confirms that it exists. This is useful in a culture where a comfortable house is often treated as evidence that its occupant must be comfortable too. The call also carries practical intelligence. Which grocer has chicken on sale? Which physician takes women seriously? Which teacher humiliates slow readers? Which babysitter can be trusted? And which repairman charges for studying the appliance thoughtfully? Before information can be searched from a sofa, it moves between kitchens through conversation. Long-distance calls require restraint. Charges depend on distance, duration, and sometimes the time of day. You may wait for cheaper evening rates, speak to an operator, or watch the clock while talking to your mother in another state. Affection is warm, but the telephone bill arrives with exact figures. Women's telephone conversations are often mocked as chatter. Cartoons, advertisements, and household jokes present the wife as attached to the receiver while dinner burns nearby. The joke ignores how isolation works. A suburban home may contain modern appliances and still leave you alone most of the day. 10 minutes with a friend can provide company that Chrome and automatic timers have failed to produce. You hear a key at the front door. Your voice changes instinctively. The serious subject folds itself into a harmless discussion of a recipe. You say goodbye, return the receiver to its cradle, and straighten the cord. The telephone has carried everything except proof that the conversation occurred. When the telephone call ends, the television offers less confidential company. The curtains are half drawn against the glare, the ironing board is open, and a daytime serial murmurs from the living room. Housewives are a valuable audience for advertisers, yet watching television during the day can still suggest idleness, even when you are ironing shirts, feeding a baby, mending a hem, and planning dinner at the same time. You learn the schedule, arrange chores around a favourite program, and switch off the set before the evening routine begins. Your husband returns to a quiet living room and may imagine the television has spent the day resting. It has witnessed 3 fictional marriages collapse while you folded his socks. The set occupies the room like furniture. Its cabinet may be polished wood, its screen thick glass, and its picture black and white despite expanding colour broadcasts. You turn a dial, wait for the tubes to warm, and watch a pale dot widen into a trembling image. Reception depends upon the antenna, the weather, and whether someone has walked past with hostile electrical intentions. Daytime programming follows the household schedule. There are game shows, talk programs, cooking demonstrations, reruns, and serial dramas continuing from one afternoon to the next, as the world turns has been unfolding since the 1950s. During the 1960s, General Hospital, Another World, and Days of Our Lives add new hospitals, households, and emotional emergencies. They are called soap operas because soap manufacturers sponsor early radio serials and follow their female audience into television. The name sounds dismissive, as if the stories are bubbles surrounding detergent. Yet the programs offer continuing characters, moral dilemmas, illness, betrayal, romance, and the discovery that every town contains a staircase suitable for overhearing a secret. You tell yourself you are not sitting down to watch, you are ironing near the television. This distinction is important. The iron hisses across damp cotton while music announces the return from a commercial. You look up only when someone receives a mysterious letter, which occurs often enough to keep an entire basket of shirts under careful supervision. The commercials understand the room. They offer laundry powder, floor wax, canned soup, headache remedies, cosmetics, shortening, and appliances. A spotless television wife beams at a cleaner collar, as though chemistry has restored her faith in civilization. Another apologizes for coffee that has disappointed her husband. The advertisements identify domestic problems efficiently, particularly those corrected by purchasing something before 5 o'clock. The programs provide more than suspense. They create voices in a quiet house. Their characters return each day, asking nothing from you except attention during important scenes. When much of your work is repetitive and quickly undone, a continuing story gives the afternoon shape. Today's misunderstanding may survive until Friday, which is more endurance than most freshly swept floors can claim. Still, you remain alert to judgment. Leisure for a housewife is often expected to be useful. Reading may improve you. Sewing may clothe someone. Television simply entertains, and entertainment leaves no folded evidence behind. If a neighbour knocks, you lower the volume. If your husband telephones unexpectedly, you stand farther from the set, as though dramatic organ music might reveal a weakness of character. Near evening, you finish the last shirt and carry the folded stack upstairs. The television clicks off. Its picture contracts to a bright point, then disappears. You open the curtains, straighten the cushions, and return the room to its respectable silence. At dinner, Nobody asks what happened in the fictional town. This is fortunate. You know far more about its marriages than anyone knows about yours. Television is not the only thing entering the quiet afternoon. In 1963, Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique gives public language to a dissatisfaction many middle-class women have struggled to name. Not every housewife reads it, agrees with it, or sees herself represented in its pages. Black women, working-class women, and women, already combining employment with domestic labor, often recognize that its supposedly universal suburban housewife represents only a narrow portion of American womanhood. Still, a book questioning compulsory domestic fulfillment can feel dangerous in a home organized around its promise. You read several pages, then slide it beneath magazines teaching you how to improve your marriage with better curtains. The curtains, to their credit, have made no demands. The book is thick, serious, and difficult to mistake for a decorating guide. Its opening describes what Friedan calls the problem that has no name, a persistent emptiness among women who have been told that marriage, children, consumption, and a well-managed home should provide complete fulfillment. The trouble with a nameless problem is that everyone can insist you are imagining it. You recognize parts of the argument. Perhaps you have education you rarely use, ambitions that sound selfish when spoken aloud, or a daily routine whose completion leaves nothing lasting behind. The beds will be unmade tomorrow. The dishes will return. Domestic work is necessary, but necessity does not automatically transform repetition into destiny. Friedan develops her ideas partly from a survey of fellow graduates from Smith College, women whose lives reflect a largely white, educated, middle-class world. Her book challenges a powerful ideal, but it does not capture every woman's circumstances. Many women have always worked for wages because their families require the income. Black women, in particular, have long combined paid labor with care for their own households, sometimes while performing domestic work in the homes of white families. So the book's housewife is not the housewife. She is one figure within a much larger and less orderly history. Yet, a limited argument can still loosen something. By naming dissatisfaction as more than personal failure, the book suggests that loneliness, frustration, and unused ability may have social causes. Your unhappiness might not be proof that you are ungrateful. This is a surprisingly disruptive possibility. The magazines stacked above it offer a competing diagnosis. If you feel tired, change your hairstyle. If your marriage seems flat, prepare a more imaginative casserole. If you lack confidence, purchase lipstick in a shade whose name sounds bolder than your current life. Their advice converts structural discomfort into a sequence of manageable household projects, all conveniently available near the cosmetics counter. The contrast is almost soothing. One publication asks whether domestic ideals have confined women, the next explains how to arrange throw pillows. You turn from a critique of feminine identity to a photograph of a gelatin salad supporting olives with remarkable courage. The decade contains multitudes, several suspended in mayonnaise. Books do not create social movements alone, but the feminine mystique becomes an influential text in the emerging women's movement. Friedan later helps found the National Organization for Women in 1966. Across the decade, women begin discussing discrimination in employment and education, unequal pay, reproductive rights, and the assumption that domestic responsibility belongs naturally to them. You may not join an organization or announce a new philosophy at dinner. Change often begins less ceremoniously. You read a sentence and feel the private shock of recognition. Then you hear the front door, close the book, and return it beneath the magazines. Nothing in the room has visibly changed. The lamp remains polished, the curtains hang correctly, dinner still requires attention. Only the reader has become slightly harder to arrange. The questions raised by that hidden book do not remain on the page. The ideal television housewife may stay home, but millions of married American women work for wages during the 1960s. Some are employed in offices, shops, factories, schools, hospitals, restaurants, and private homes. Others type, sew, bake, mind children, sell cosmetics, or complete piecework at the kitchen table. A husband may welcome the additional income, describe it as temporary, or feel unsettled by what it suggests about his ability to provide. You may call your earnings pin money even when they pay for groceries, school clothes, or electricity. The phrase keeps the household hierarchy comfortable. The money keeps the household running. Your working day may begin after the breakfast dishes and end before the dinner plates. If you leave the house, you arrange childcare, transportation, clothes, lunches, and the explanation for why you are employed. Paid work does not necessarily replace domestic work. It often sits on top of it like a second hat worn because the first one was apparently insufficient. The employment pages make expectations plain. Newspapers commonly divide help-wanted advertisements into male and female columns. Jobs offered to women cluster around secretarial work, nursing, teaching, retail, food service, and clerical support. Employers may specify youth, appearance, marital status, or a pleasant personality, sometimes before mentioning whether you can perform the work. In an office, you may type letters, take dictation, file documents, answer telephones, and remember details for a man whose position is considered more important, partly because someone else remembers his details. Advancement is limited. A woman demonstrating competence may be rewarded with additional duties arranged around the same title. The Equal Pay Act becomes law in 1963, prohibiting certain forms of sex-based wage discrimination for equal work. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 also prohibits employment discrimination based on sex. These measures matter, but a law does not instantly reorganize every workplace. Jobs remain segregated, enforcement develops slowly, and employers can insist that men and women are performing different work even when the difference is mainly the pay envelope. If regular employment seems impractical, work may come into the home. You sew garments by the piece, address envelopes, type manuscripts, care for neighbors' children, or prepare food for sale. The kitchen table becomes a workplace after lunch and returns to being a dining surface before supper. The transformation leaves thread, flour, carbon paper, and no recognized closing time. Direct selling offers another route. Companies such as Avon recruit women to sell cosmetics door to door, while home party businesses turn living rooms into temporary shops. Such work can provide income and companionship with flexible hours, though flexibility usually means fitting paid labor into every space. Domestic labor has neglected to occupy. Your earnings may arrive as cash, a check, or a pay envelope with deductions neatly recorded. Once home, the money develops destinations: shoes for a growing child, a dentist's bill, a refrigerator payment, savings for Christmas. Perhaps a small amount remains for you, although a wife's earnings often become family money immediately. Calling it pin money makes the arrangement sound decorative. The phrase suggests hat pins, stockings, or harmless luxuries rather than rent and groceries. It protects the breadwinner ideal by presenting your wage as an accessory. If the household needs your income every month, everyone may still agree that you merely work for something to do. You place the envelope in your handbag and begin the journey home. By evening, dinner is prepared, the children are settled, and your working day has been folded into the household routine so neatly that it almost disappears. The income is extra. Curiously, the bills have come to depend upon it. The questions raised by that hidden book do not remain on the page. The ideal television housewife may stay home, but millions of married American women work for wages during the 1960s. Some are employed in offices, shops, factories, schools, hospitals, restaurants, and private homes. Others type, sew, bake, mind children, sell cosmetics, or complete piecework at the kitchen table. A husband may welcome the additional income, describe it as temporary, or feel unsettled by what it suggests about his ability to provide. You may call your earnings pin money even when they pay for groceries, school clothes, or electricity. The phrase keeps the household hierarchy comfortable. The money keeps the household running. Your working day may begin after the breakfast dishes and end before the dinner plates. If you leave the house, you arrange childcare, transportation, clothes, lunches, and the explanation for why you are employed. Paid work does not necessarily replace domestic work. It often sits on top of it like a second hat worn because the first one was apparently insufficient. The employment pages make expectations plain. Newspapers commonly divide help-wanted advertisements into male and female columns. Jobs offered to women cluster around secretarial work, nursing, teaching, retail, food service, and clerical support. Employers may specify youth, appearance, marital status, or a pleasant personality, sometimes before mentioning whether you can perform the work. In an office, you may type letters, take dictation, file documents, answer telephones, and remember details for a man whose position is considered more important partly because someone else remembers his details. Advancement is limited. A woman demonstrating competence may be rewarded with additional duties arranged around the same title. The Equal Pay Act becomes law in 1963, prohibiting certain forms of sex-based wage discrimination for equal work. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 also prohibits employment discrimination based on sex. These measures matter, but a law does not instantly reorganize every workplace. Jobs remain segregated, enforcement develops slowly, and employers can insist that men and women are performing different work even when the difference is mainly the pay envelope. If regular employment seems impractical, work may come into the home. You sew garments by the piece, address envelopes, type manuscripts, care for neighbors' children, or prepare food for sale. The kitchen table becomes a workplace after lunch and returns to being a dining surface before supper. The transformation leaves thread, flour, carbon paper, and no recognized closing time. Direct selling offers another route. Companies such as Avon recruit women to sell cosmetics door to door, while home party businesses turn living rooms into temporary shops. Such work can provide income and companionship with flexible hours, though flexibility usually means fitting paid labor into every space. Domestic labor has neglected to occupy. Your earnings may arrive as cash, a check, or a pay envelope, with deductions neatly recorded. Once home, the money develops destinations: shoes for a growing child, a dentist's bill, a refrigerator payment, savings for Christmas. Perhaps a small amount remains for you, although a wife's earnings often become family money immediately. Calling it pin money makes the arrangement sound decorative. The phrase suggests hat pins, stockings, or harmless luxuries rather than rent and groceries. It protects the breadwinner ideal by presenting your wage as an accessory. If the household needs your income every month, everyone may still agree that you merely work for something to do. You place the envelope in your handbag and begin the journey home. By evening, dinner is prepared, the children are settled, and your working day has been folded into the household routine so neatly that it almost disappears. The income is extra. Curiously, the bills have come to depend upon it. Earning money may awaken plans that do not fit neatly inside the domestic schedule. There is an application form beneath the tea towels. It may be for a college course, a professional examination, a teaching position, or training that would return you to work paused by marriage and children. You have not submitted it. You may not have decided whether you will. Married women pursuing educational careers face practical barriers involving childcare, finances, admissions practices, and the expectation that a husband's employment will determine the family's location and timetable. You smooth the form, read the questions again, and hide it when someone enters. For now, your future is stored beside the good napkins. The form contains questions with complicated answers: previous education, employment history, references, dates available. You can supply the facts, but each blank opens another calculation. Who will watch the children? How much will tuition cost? Can classes be reached by bus? What happens when a child develops a fever during an examination, as children seem trained to do? Higher education is expanding during the 1960s. Community colleges grow, and evening courses offer routes for adults unable to attend full-time. The Higher Education Act of 1965 increases federal support for students and institutions. Opportunity is widening, though it does not arrive evenly or without paperwork. A married applicant may encounter counselors who treat her ambitions as temporary, admissions policies favoring men, or professors who assume domestic obligations will prevent serious study. Some professional programs restrict women or admit them in small numbers. The question is not whether you are capable, it is whether an institution considers your ability worth accommodating. Your earlier plans may have been interrupted without being formally abandoned. Perhaps you left college to marry, resigned when you became pregnant, or moved when your husband received a better position. The decision sounded collective, but the professional sacrifice came from one resume. After several years, returning can feel less like resuming a path than asking permission to re-enter your own life. Even modest ambitions disturb the household timetable. A night class means dinner must appear earlier, someone else must handle bedtime, and the car may not be available. Studying requires quiet after the dishes. Textbooks cost money. Assignments occupy the kitchen table, where every page remains vulnerable to spilled milk and requests for help finding a shoe. Your husband may encourage you. He may agree in principle but resist the practical changes. He may worry that your education will alter the marriage, expose you to new people, or make his own work seem less central. Support is easiest when it remains a compliment. It becomes more demanding when Tuesday dinner depends upon it. The possibilities are tangible. A credential could lead to teaching, nursing, bookkeeping, library work, civil service, or another field offering income and identity beyond the house. Some professions are opening further to women, while the women's movement increasingly challenges barriers once presented as ordinary policy. Change is moving, although it has not yet learned to provide babysitting, so you keep the application close. Hiding it does not necessarily mean you intend to deceive anyone. You may be protecting a plan while it is still fragile, before objections arrive and begin explaining why next year would be more convenient. Next year has already enjoyed several successful terms in office. In the afternoon, you take out a pen. Your name fits easily on the first line. The next question asks when you are prepared to begin. From the hallway comes the sound of a child calling for you. You fold the form once, place it back beneath the napkins, and close the drawer. The application remains incomplete, but it now knows your name. Sometimes the application in the drawer represents more than ambition. Not every secret is comic, and not every tidy house is safe. During the 1960s, domestic cruelty and violence are widely treated as private family matters, poorly recognized by institutions, and difficult to discuss without shame or disbelief. You may hide bruises beneath sleeves, explain an absence with illness, or quietly consider where you and the children could go. Divorce laws in much of the country still require proof of fault, financial independence may be limited, and organized shelters for abused women are not yet widely available. You straighten the room the following morning because the room is easier to repair than the marriage, and because respectability has always been deeply interested in surfaces. The evidence may be ordinary enough to overlook if someone prefers not to see it. A cracked dish, a dent in the wall, a neighbor who heard shouting but decides marriage is private. You learn which cosmetics cover discoloration, which sleeves remain plausible in warm weather, and which explanations end questions quickly. The language available to you is limited. Terms such as wife-beating exist, but the broader understanding of domestic abuse as a pattern of coercion, control, intimidation, and violence is not yet established in public policy or everyday conversation. The problem is often treated as an unfortunate quarrel between spouses, as though two people had disagreed with equal force about the placement of a chair. Police responses vary, but officers often hesitate to arrest in what is regarded as a domestic dispute unless injuries are severe. Courts may provide little protection. Specialized hotlines, advocacy programs, and shelters will begin expanding in the following decade. But during the 1960s, most communities offer no organized system designed for your situation. You may turn instead to a relative, a friend, a doctor, a social worker, or a local welfare agency. Help depends heavily on the person listening. One may offer a spare room or practical guidance. Another may advise patience, silence, or improved housekeeping, as if a more orderly cupboard might persuade violence to reconsider its position. Leaving requires more than courage. You need money, transportation, documents, clothing, medicine, and somewhere to sleep. If you have children, you must consider school, custody, and whether taking them will create legal trouble. A private envelope behind the linens suddenly becomes less a household secret than an exit route measured in small bills. Divorce presents further obstacles. Most states still rely on fault-based grounds such as adultery, desertion, or cruelty. Procedures and standards differ, and proving cruelty can require witnesses or evidence created under circumstances where witnesses are rarely invited. Legal fees cost money. Social judgment can fall heavily upon a divorced woman, while employment and housing may be harder to secure with children. None of this means women never leave. They do. Some seek relatives, hotels, boarding houses, hospitals, or whatever temporary refuge exists. Some plan quietly for months. Others leave suddenly when danger becomes unmistakable. Many return because money runs out, promises are made, children need stability, or the alternatives are frighteningly thin. Returning does not mean the danger was imaginary. It often means the available choices were. Morning arrives with its familiar demands. You sweep fragments, prepare breakfast, and answer ordinary questions in an ordinary voice. Outside, The lawn is clipped. Curtains hang evenly. The household presents itself to the street as a complete and peaceful unit. But you have placed documents in your handbag. The emergency envelope is no longer behind the towels. A friend knows to expect your call. The room looks unchanged because the important repair has begun when nobody can see it. Night settles over the house. The children sleep, the television has gone dark, and your husband breathes steadily beside you while the secrets of the day return one by one. Some are small, the cake mix, the cigarette, the grocery change. Others are large enough to alter a life. The book, the application form, the medicine bottle, or the plan you have not spoken aloud. The 1960s do not contain one kind of housewife or one kind of marriage, but they do contain women discovering that privacy can become a workshop in which change is prepared. You lie still in the darkness, imagining a life with more room in it. Nothing visible has happened yet. History is often quietly awake before the household notices. The house provides its usual night sounds. Pipes settle behind the walls. The refrigerator begins another low mechanical hum. A car passes outside and briefly lays pale light across the ceiling. Tomorrow's work is already waiting in several rooms, having shown admirable initiative by creating itself while everyone sleeps. You think about the objects hidden throughout the house: an envelope behind towels, tablets beside cold cream, a book beneath magazines, a form inside a drawer. None appears important enough to trouble a visitor. Together, they form a private archive of choices, fears, compromises, and possibilities. Secrecy is not freedom. It can be lonely, exhausting, and dangerous. It may protect you temporarily while leaving the conditions that require it untouched. Yet privacy can provide the small area in which a thought survives before it is ready to be discussed. You save money before deciding how to use it. You read before finding language. You imagine departure, education, employment, or simply an afternoon that belongs to you. Across the country, other women are conducting similar inventories. They meet through labor unions, civil rights organizations, professional associations, neighborhood groups, and emerging women's organizations. Some challenge discriminatory employment practices. Some demand access to education or contraception. Some begin speaking openly about unpaid labor, marriage, sexuality, and violence. Subjects previously wrapped in the respectable paper of private life. The decade's changes are uneven. The Equal Pay Act and Title VII establish important legal principles, but discrimination continues. Contraception becomes more accessible for married couples, but not for everyone. The National Organization for Women forms in 1966, while smaller feminist groups develop new methods of discussion and protest. Laws change slowly. Customs move with the dignity of a heavy sofa being pushed across carpet. Your own life may not resemble a movement. You may never attend a meeting, carry a sign, or describe yourself with a political label. Perhaps your change is enrolling in one evening course. Perhaps it is keeping part of your wages, telling a doctor the full truth, choosing not to have another child, or admitting to a friend that the perfect household has not made you perfectly happy. These choices do not all lead in the same direction. One woman wants a career, another wants domestic work to be valued rather than treated as effortless. One wants to leave a marriage, another wants to renegotiate one. Freedom is not a single replacement life issued to every woman in a more practical colour. Beside you, your husband turns in his sleep. You remain still, not from fear this time, but because the thought forming in your mind is delicate and you would like to hear it finish. The alarm clock glows faintly. In a few hours, you will rise, make coffee, and begin the familiar performance again. But familiarity is no longer proof that the arrangement is permanent. The house believes you are asleep. For once, the house has not been fully informed. And now, you can let the house grow quiet again. You have spent these hours among cooling coffee, dark television screens, restrictive girdles, carefully arranged smiles, and kitchen cupboards containing more private history than anyone suspected. Behind their doors waited the cake mix box, the cigarette, the medicine bottle, the grocery money, and perhaps one application form resting beneath the good napkins. You have seen how housewives of the 1960s lived with expectations that could be exhausting, contradictory, and occasionally absurd. You were supposed to embrace modern convenience while concealing every shortcut, manage money without appearing independent, and remain attractive without revealing the machinery involved. You were also expected to find complete fulfillment inside a home that might leave very little room for you. Yet the women who lived within these expectations were never merely passive figures in advertisements. They adapted, saved, worked, protected children, supported friends, questioned doctors, and kept private ambitions alive. Sometimes resilience looked heroic. More often, it looked like surviving breakfast without allowing the toast to discover anything was wrong. From the present, you can feel grateful for comforts and freedoms that were not equally available then. Greater access to contraception, independent credit, workplace protections, education, communication, and support services can change the shape of a life. None is perfect, and none should be taken for granted. So let the polished kitchen fade. Leave the magazines on the table and the telephone resting quietly in its cradle. Return to your own room, your blanket, and the familiar sounds around you. No expression needs arranging. No dinner must appear. No appliance requires an emergency explanation. You have done enough for one day. Let tomorrow remain unopened a little longer. For once, it can manage without you until morning. Rest gently, sleep deeply, and good night.